Moving on now to passage number 2, and the first question we see is specific, so we're going to do this one right away. It's another vocab-in-context question, and what I want to show you in this episode is that usage matters. In other words, how a word sounds or how the word is used in a sentence when you're doing one of these vocab-in-context questions actually matters, in the sense that if you plug in these words in the sentence in place of, in this case, the word plot, and if the word just doesn't seem like it belongs in the sense of it doesn't fit how it's used in standard English, it's an expression that just doesn't make sense, there's a good chance it's not the answer. Let me show you what I mean. Let's start by reading part of this passage to get the context for the sentence. What fills the gap? A vast informal economy driven by human relationships, dense networks of social connections through which people traded resources and created value. The Soviet people didn't blank how they would build these networks. No one was teaching them how to maximize their connections, blah, blah, blah. So let's pretend, typically we cross out this word plot and we put in our own word. Let's pretend we were having trouble coming up with our own word. So in that case, you just go right to the choices. Now, as I said, plug these words in and not only pay attention to the vocabulary, to the meaning of the word, but also to how it's being used and if that makes sense. So for example, A, the Soviet people didn't mark how they would build these networks. Mark how is not a standard usage for the verb mark. You don't mark how something. It's a bit strange, right? So there's a good chance that A is not going to work. And also, more importantly, based on the meaning, it just doesn't make sense. Mark wouldn't be a synonym for plot here. How about form? The Soviet people didn't form how they would build these networks. Again, kind of strange. You don't form how something. That's not a proper idiom. You can almost think of these as idioms in some sense. You don't form how something. You just form something. And again, also doesn't make sense with the meaning. How about plan? The Soviet people didn't plan how they would build these buildings. Now, plan how does make sense, right? You do plan how to do something. So based on the idiom, this seems to make sense, and more importantly, it is a good synonym for plot here, right? Plot how they would build networks, or plan. It's all about if they consciously and intentionally came up with these networks, right? They planned them. So that makes sense. About D, the Soviet people didn't claim how they would build these networks. Okay, that works reasonably well too. You can claim, I suppose, how something. It's a bit awkward, but I guess it could work. But more importantly, it's not a synonym of plot, so it doesn't make sense to put it in the sentence based on meaning. So the answer here is C. Now again, this is not a foolproof method. This is just one tool you can use when you're doing a vocab-in-context question to help you try to narrow down, at the very least get a guess. But it can help you get rid of some of the more obvious choices so that you can narrow down. And now that there are only 4 choices, each elimination you make is just that much more valuable. So this one's going to be C. To learn more about Reason Prep's SAT, SAT subject test, and ACT video courses, go to reasonprep.com/enroll. And you can find the link in the description below the video.